Let's start here locally, as there is a Pro Football Talk report that has sent the local Whodat news cycle into a bit of a tizzy. And you could almost combine this with the piece that Jeff Duncan had a couple of weeks ago. And we talked to Jeff about it, where somebody, and I've heard a couple of names about who this could be, an agent, a kind of, not necessarily agent, but like a power broker, like one of the kind of shadow movers, one of the shadow lords. Somebody out there, Jake, is putting out the idea of Sean Payton returning to New Orleans. It does not mean it will happen, but somebody is putting it out there. Are you open to say something, or is that just a deep inhale?
No, well, I was going to let you finish. But it is wild because, like, when you start talking about it, I'm Googling Sean Payton just to kind of see what the latest story is. And this is a story that we're going to get into.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, okay, the first headline, could we see Sean Payton and Tom Brady in New Orleans next year? The second headline, Sean Payton, Arizona Cardinals speculation intensifies after report. Next one, Sean Payton, Broncos, question mark.
Yep.
Like, all three of those stories are the latest stories on Sean Payton, and it goes on. There's another Broncos story, and then here comes another one handicapping the Sean Payton sweepstakes. And so it's hard to get excited. It's hard to get mad about any Sean Payton story because there's so many stories out there. It's Arizona, it's Denver. The Chargers has cooled down now that they're in the postseason. It's could he return to the Saints? And so that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, okay, which one actually has legs? Which one is just false reporting?
For whatever this is worth, in the Florio article, he kind of dismisses wholly the idea of Arizona or Denver. Arizona was not given a great reason. The Denver reason has been interesting. Well, first off, I mean, I think both Kyler and Russell are pretty unappealing at this moment. But maybe beyond that, it sounds so the other headlines you'll find, Jake, with that Google search, if you continue to dig, is the recent batch of stories about Sean Payton assembling an all-star team, which really, this was that same person likely, whoever is the one putting Sean Payton back to New Orleans out there, sent Adam Schefter, basically, I'm sure, something about how Sean Payton's putting together a monster squad. The only real piece of news in there is that it looks like, reportedly, he's going to be teaming up with Vic Fangio as his DC, right? So a little Sean Payton offense, Vic Fangio defense. And so some are saying that rules out Denver along with the Russell situation, as Vic was just head coach there, and it ended very poorly after 3 years of it going poorly. So I don't know. I don't know. Again, New Orleans may not happen. What's interesting, though, here's a direct quote from the Florio article on Pro Football Talk. Quote, "Well, the possibility of Brady to New Orleans or anywhere remains a complete and total unknown. There's a growing school of thought in league circles that Payton, if he coaches in 2023, will return to the Saints. One source with a finger firmly on the pulse," see the Shadow Lord, firmly on the pulse of pro football, told Pro Football Talk that it's currently, quote, "the worst kept secret in league circles." So there is some juice there. And I mean, forget about the Tom Brady part, just Sean Payton returning to coach the Saints. I think most Saints fans would be over the moon about. So already you have a dream, but now that dream got significantly more interesting. If this oft-rumored but never consummated Sean Payton-Tom Brady relationship finally came to pass, because when you look, they've been trying to get together for years, right? They're almost like good friends. They've always been kind of attracted to one another, but for whatever reason, like their situations never worked out. They're in a relationship here, there, somebody gets in the way. But remember, if Breeze would have retired in 2020, it is basically accepted that Tom Brady was going to go to New Orleans and choose Sean Payton and the Saints as his destination. This is confirmed as well, that insane storyline that probably doesn't get talked about from last offseason enough, where Tom Brady was retiring to go to Miami, to get out of his contract, go to Miami. He was going to get ownership equity. He was going to be a part of the front office, and they were going to bring Sean Payton out of retirement to coach. That did not come to pass. Well, now it could finally happen in New Orleans. And look, I know it's a bit weird, because if you're a Saints fan, you probably spent the last 3 years clowning Tom Brady, making fun of Tom Brady, convincing yourself in your head that Tom Brady sucks. And that's all well and good. But answer a very simple question for me. If I gave you two choices on the test and you got to answer, you got to choose the reality in which you live. And boys, feel free to answer if you think you have, if you choose the interesting option here. Would you take Dennis Allen and Andy Dalton or Sean Payton and Tom Brady? I mean, it's that, I get it. Maybe Tom Brady sucks. He's old. Maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe it all blows up in your face. But I'll be damned if I'm not going to try. And if I'm the ownership of New Orleans, yes, is it a bit of a bad look to have this coach retire? You upgrade Dennis Allen, you fire him a year afterwards, especially when the team's been pretty okay here down the stretch. It's not a great look, and it's not in keeping with the type of franchise they want to run. But sometimes you just got to make bold, hard decisions. It's the exact decision, allegedly, that LSU's brass had with Nick Saban when he was returning from the Miami Dolphins, and they chose to stick with the guy that they had. And he was even doing better than Allen, obviously, Miles was, but still, they chose to stay the course. They were mad at him. Well, look at what happened there, okay? If Sean Payton wants to come back, you welcome him back. And if he wants to bring Tom Brady, you make it happen.
So, obviously, there's a lot to unpack there. It's like, okay, if he does come back, I think you'd be okay because it is the coach that left. You hired Dennis Allen. Actually, you promote him from within. And so I think you'd be okay in NFL circles as far as, you only gave this guy 1 year. That conversation wouldn't be as heightened because it is your guy coming back. But
yeah,
a part of me is wondering how much of this is Sean Payton just enjoying being flirted with.
Yeah. Sure.
Because he's been known to be someone who enjoys that attention. Okay, like a lot of people. It's not hating on Sean Payton. How much of this is real? How much is it he's sitting back? He's like, man, I got the Arizona fans. I got the Charger fans. I got the Bronco fans. I got the Saints fans all wanting me to be their head coach. And so, if you're the Saints and these rumors are starting to fly around, you got to have some real conversations about what this means. How real is this?
Yeah.
If you come back as our coach, is it for a year again and then you retire and then here we go again? And then what can we get? If you come back and then you later say, you know what, I'm done, or if in 2 years you go somewhere else, what do the Saints do then? If I'm the Saints, I would have to have hey, I need a commitment. I need you to sign this contract right now to say you're going to do what, A, B, and C. Because if we bring you back and then it's a year later and you're like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and retire again, who can you get if you're New Orleans? That's going to be the question.
Yeah, and let's also, for sure. You're going to need some sort of essentially you have to hope and you would need assurances that that Sean Payton's retirement was not really retirement. It was sabbatical masquerading as a retirement, right? You would need assurances that this year off has rejuiced him for years to come, especially because, as Emil points out, you would think Payton would want to be around a young QB, not a 45-year-old that'll likely be out of the league in 2 to 3 years. Well, yesterday we called Andy Dalton the perfect bridge quarterback. Tom Brady's actually the perfect bridge quarterback. I think that would be the idea with Payton, right? You get to work with a guy you've always wanted to work with that you're going to have a rapport with. You're going to be able to intellectually meet at the same level. And then maybe you draft a Hendon Hooker in the second round next year. Maybe you draft a young guy, try to develop him over time. But again, I think you take this shot if it is indeed real. But like Jake said, it's also driving up value, right? You want to go to the Chargers? Probably not going to happen. Now they're making the playoffs. You want to go to the Cowboys? You're saying, wait, but T-Bob, they're having a great year too. Cowboys lose first round of the playoffs? I mean, I don't think Mike McCarthy's safe, right?
Right.
It's crazy, but Jerry Jones covets Sean Payton the same way that Sean Payton covets Tom Brady. And so this is also, I think, a bit of pressure application from the Payton camp saying, well, hey, man, look, if you aren't willing to bite, there are suitors out here. So you got to think real long and hard about how married you are to Mike McCarthy. So I don't know if any of this will come to pass. It feels even more unrealistic than when we were dreaming about having Tyrann Mathieu and C.D. Deuce in the same backfield, which you got part of that and you thought you had until you didn't. But it's certainly interesting. It just intrigues me who is pulling the strings, right? And then who benefits. And unraveling that web is still a bit dense right now.
Well, the Saints, when you look at what they have next season, as far as not having a first-round pick, having some not issues in the cap because the Saints are so good at figuring out the cap. When you look at kind of the makeup of what next year's team's going to be, you might take a chance on something like this. Like if you had your first-round pick, if you had a roster that you felt good about moving forward, and you had a quarterback that's not maybe the guy, but he's good at all those things, you don't make this move probably. But with the Saints and what their future looks like, that probably makes a pairing like this more likely.
Well, we've seen some nice pieces develop where all of a sudden, if you have an offensive mind, like think about the Underhill interview yesterday, a lot of his problem was kind of an undercurrent with the philosophy. Excuse me, that was a weird, I didn't phrase that correctly. In all of Nick's answers, there was an undercurrent of dissatisfaction with the philosophy and the strategy of the offense, right? Talking about how you basically have taken a player in Alvin Kamara who was on a Hall of Fame track and you have neutered him. You know who would get the most out of Alvin Kamara? Tom Brady. If you ever could get Mike Thomas back for an extended amount of time, he could get juice there. He could probably get juice out of juice, even though he's probably not going to be back next year anyway. And hey, Tom Brady needs a Gronk, a big body tight end. Okay, dude. Juwan Johnson's looking pretty good. Saints defense hasn't given up over 26 games in a row. Caden Ellis looks nice. Mario Davis continues to be nice. It's like all of a sudden you become vastly more interesting if you have Brady and Payton, and I think you can take advantage of some of the offensive talent that you've been wasting for a few years here. And also, man, he's old. It's time for Brady to get in a dome, okay? Get in the AC. It's nice, climate controlled. No wind to worry about. You had to deal with the winters up in New England. You're now dealing with summers in Florida. Like, get here to New Orleans. Yeah, maybe you got to practice outside on an airline every now and then, but you're going to be in the dome on game day, okay? You don't have to worry about the elements at all. You're going to be nice and comfy for you. Come on, Tom.
If Sean Payton does come back, is Dennis Allen like the only move? You know what I'm saying? So if you come back, and there's reports that he's putting together this staff, but we've only heard a defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, well, does that mean like, okay, you come in, Pete stays the same, everyone else stays the same, and then Vic just slides in to be the defensive coordinator there, and Dennis Allen's the only move? He's the only guy that gets the axe?
That would be messed up. I imagine it'd be some mixture. I mean, we know how Peyton feels about Ryan Nielsen, right? You keep a guy like Nielsen on staff. But then again, if Fangio, I think Nielsen is co-DC right now. Is that correct? So if Fangio comes, nobody's going to take demotions, right? So it probably is more of an overall staff turnover, if I had to guess. So just a little tantalizing December 28th New Year nugget for you there. Something to suckle at the teat of during this offseason and kind of tease yourself a little bit and get excited about.
No, it's a major story, and it's just you want to dive fully into it. But again, like you Google Sean Payton, it's like the first three stories are three different teams, and you just wonder how much of it is actually a reality. Tom Brady's still with the Bucs. Tom Brady is still likely to make the postseason, right? And so there's reports that he's attached to him. It's like, how much of that can you actually believe?
Well, I believe that Tom Brady doesn't give a damn about the Bucs. Like he already got them the Super Bowl. I mean, he literally retired from them. Remember the retirement video? It had no Patriot shout out to anything. He had to go back and do that afterwards to cover his tracks. So they were suddenly like, oh wait, like duh. People are asking why I didn't think like New England or anything. He wasn't retiring from football. He was retiring from the Bucs to go to Miami. So he does not give a damn about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in my opinion. The thing that I wish I could know the truth of, Jake, is what is referenced in the Pro Football Talk article. Are places like Arizona and Denver really off the table for Peyton? And is it just like a Chargers, Cowboys, Saints kind of final three? In that article, I think they all said he's not interested in Carolina for whatever that's worth. So I don't know. I don't know. We'll Indianapolis is out there. We'll have to wait and see. But maybe the Peyton Brady dream they've been trying to make happen for so many years, maybe it finally comes together. We'll see.